I'm not going to pretend like I really, know every nook and cranny and bolt and assembly and action and whatnot that was taking place on this, I guess you could call it historical event. Uh, you know, from my brief understanding, they built this submarine with experimental parts, carbon fiber pressure chamber. They built it in a cylindrical fashion instead of a spherical fashion. Now, spheres, pressure equally on all sides, it will actually help keep the structure together. The cylinder has the weak spot, weak part right in the middle there where all the pressure can crush on it. And from what I've heard, the guy was told multiple times from multiple people that it's not a good idea, bud. But you know what? He did it anyway. And you know what? It was just bound to happen. It's this guy goes down there in the submarine, experimental submarine, controlled by a PlayStation controller or Xbox, whatever gaming console controller, right? That he picked up on Amazon, and he's charging these poor folks $250,000 just for the experience of getting squished, essentially. You know what? The guy, frankly, was an idiot. All right. There's just some things you don't mess around with. You don't do experimentals, unmanned submarines. That's what we have robots and stuff for, okay? You wanted to test out new technologies, go for it. New technologies are good. New technologies, pay the future here. But we have evolved past human trial and error at this point in history, I would have assumed. Why didn't you just make an unmanned sub to do this thing here? The cost, I'm sure. This was a budget built, this was funded by the people who, unfortunately paid to take this ride to, Davy Jones' locker there. The whole reason they built Titan the way they did was to fit more people. That's why it wasn't a sphere. They wanted to fit more passengers inside so that they could get the money to keep doing the thing they were doing. That's all there was to it. They didn't have the means to go do the research. They're researching the site. That's their MO, right? They're there to research the Titanic and, do all the sciencey stuff, right? At the bottom of the ocean, 2.5 miles below sea level, they're doing all this science. But they couldn't do it alone, so they had to charge people, wealthy people, which, wealthy people need to spend their money on something, so, alright, send me down to the bottom of the ocean to go see some shipwreck that you could have easily seen. It's not like you're seeing it in person even, you're seeing it through this much plexiglass or whatever it is they used, some polymer carbonate something, right? I don't know. To me, I just think the whole thing is ridiculous. Honestly, I don't even consider it a tragedy myself because the guy was asking for it. He was asking for it, and he strung along these other, people who didn't know any better along with him. I feel bad for the kid because as far as I know, the kid didn't even want to go. The dad, basically forced him to go on this trip. I guess this kid was scared, shitless, which, his apparently better instincts than the old man had. But, as far as I think, I don't really consider it a tragedy myself. Does it suck that it happened? Sure, I guess. But you know what? I don't waste tears on other people's stupidity, okay? You just don't mess around with experimental shit like that. You don't take other people down. I mean, it's bad enough that he went down there himself to go do all this stuff, but he brought other people with him. You know, that's just irresponsible. I mean, that's borderline criminal. The thing, you know, what he was doing is 2.5 miles below the sea level, just crushing depth. I mean, it's like the Empire State Building sitting on top of you, and it was made out of lead. Like, this is a lot of pressure to be having on these carbon fiber experimental parts. And truthfully, maybe even the carbon fiber wasn't the problem. The problem could have been the fact that you had carbon fiber, you had titanium, you had all these different materials that, you know, stretch and form and crush at different rates, right? Heat expansion and, you know, retention there. It just worked itself loose, you know. I guess he went down there 12 times or so. I think he made 40 dives and he went down to the Titanic 12 times, is what I heard. And as far as I know, no real, you know, upkeep was done with the machine. Now, this is a very important distinction here. We're not talking about hot rods like this, okay? Now, this isn't like these hot rods that we're dealing with on a daily basis. You know, people get after me because the oil, right? Don't change the oil as often as the manual says I should, and I don't do this quite like the manual says I should. I do a lot of things that you're not supposed to do, right? Or, well, you're supposed to do stuff, and I just, you know, it's a worn out engine, right? What's the worst that can happen? It's already worn out. It's not like putting zinc in the oil now after all this time is going to fix the camshaft, right? No. But this is different. This is above ground. We're not dealing with taking the Iron Horse 2.5 miles below the surface of the ocean, right? We're not dealing with crushing depths. We're not dealing with this and that, whatever else. The engine blows up. Okay, oh well, right? So, what? We break the rear axle or something? Oh well, so this machine can fail. Okay? We lose brakes. You ditch her into the, you know, off the side of the road. Yeah, it would suck that the car gets beat up, right? You know, I could get beat up a little bit. I could possibly die. But that's me, right? That's me in the vehicle. That's me not charging people for the privilege of being in this automobile to just kill them, right? This isn't an experimental machine. This has been on the road for 60 years at this point. The stuff's proven. We don't have a carbon fiber chassis on this rig, okay? That's essentially what we're talking about here. If this machine fails, it's not the end of the world. The submarine fails, it's the end of their worlds. So, you know, I don't feel bad for the guy. I think he had it coming. I think he was, frankly, an idiot, personally. And you know what? You just don't mess around with that kind of stuff. We have proven time and time again the ways you go about actually going down there. You have a sphere, you know, by all means, innovate, but don't use human test subjects anymore. Okay, we're past that. Okay, even when we were sending things into space, we didn't use humans at first. We you know, worked our way up the food chain of critical, you know. I don't know. That's my opinion on it, you know. I see it all over the internet. I figured, okay, here's my opinion on it. Is it a tragedy? It's not as big of a tragedy as Titanic was, okay? It's not as big of a tragedy as the boat with, you know, 100 and so people that capsized around the same time as this happened. We were spending 4 days trying to hunt down the submarine filled with 5 rich assholes, while this poor boat filled with all these people just trying to escape wherever they were coming from capsized and killed a lot of them, okay? Which one do you think I'm more concerned about? This one where these poor ass people are just trying to fucking, get out of the situation they were in, so they were piling on this boat, or the rich snobs who fucking paid $250,000 to go see some fucking rusty metal under the ocean, okay? Tragedy. Unfortunate, maybe. For them. Tragedy. I don't know. Alright, that's my opinion. You're entitled to your own. Catch you next time.